Welcome to the Scar and Toe Show
What is up with it?
podcast, Discord. Google Hangouts podcast, quarantine edition.
Quarantine edition.
Quarantine
Whew.
edition. We're
I was
quarantined.
thinking the other day, and I've actually had this thought at least once per day.
Yeah.
There is a person on Twitter when I tweeted about like I don't want the melee community to be mafia and for us to like spread coronavirus by having a tournament at a stupid time.
I like
Someone
that.
said to me on Twitter, Scar, stop being hysterical. Like this is like you're ridiculous. Like blah blah blah. And whatever. But I just want an apology or something. I feel like if I was ever that wrong, I would apologize.
Yeah.
You ever think about that? Like if I was ever that wrong, I've been that wrong before, and I think I've apologized every time.
I've
That's
thought
all.
about this a lot lately. This has come up a lot lately, and I think it's like, this is something a couple people I follow on Twitter, not really smashers, but like the people that were sounding alarms of, COVID stuff, and they were getting called out like you're taking this too seriously or whatever, and then 2 weeks later like the whole story changed. And I think you're right. I think this has happened in like melee scene circumstances often. I was just talking to Drug Fox about something where this came up. We were talking about. I was telling him I'm playing this new fighting game that I'm trying to get good at, and I hit a barrier, right, a little plateau, and I'm thinking about what I can do in the neutral game to break, what I'm supposed to be doing to break past what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
And then I told him I had this problem where then I was like, okay, so that must be what the top players are doing, right? And then I go and watch some footage, and I was watching these top players, and I was like, they're really not doing the thing that I thought I was supposed to do to move forward in the meta is not what I see top players doing.
Yeah.
And then I was trying to put it in melee terms where it's like imagine your PP in 2012 or whatever, and you're like,
Yeah.
this is how I think you're supposed to be playing Falco to get better. Let's see what the top players are doing. And you go watch Mango, and Mango's doing all this bonkers shit that like is non-emulatable. And you're just like, how this is what I'm supposed to like, this isn't what I thought top level
Yeah.
Falco was gonna look like at all.
Totally.
And this comes up all the fucking time. And well, Drug Fox said something very good to me, which I really liked. He said, what has worked for me and what I think you should do is you should just trust yourself. And if you really think I'm onto something here, even if you see the top players and they're not, are they winning 100% of their games? Probably not. Are they winning 100% of their new interactions? Probably not. And if you have a thought where it's like this should work out in theory, and you're pretty sure you're right, and you're a smart guy, then you should trust yourself. And I guess no one's really said that to me in that way before, so I thought that was
I think it's really good that he said that. I agree.
isn't that
Do
good?
you think it's pull offable? Do you think you can do it?
Yeah,
This
said
is
that we
okay.
fleshed
So
it out.
Dark Scar
Scar.
may not actually be. Not super dark. I have to say. I feel like there's some light on the other side. But here's the thing that I've been thinking about a bunch is like enjoying what we do. First of all, making a deliberate choice as to like understand that you have the ability to choose how you're going to approach this matchup. Right? You could choose this path where you trust yourself. You could choose this path where you don't.
Yeah.
But there's another axis, which is like one is it effective? The other is will you enjoy doing the thing for its own sake?
Yeah.
In other words, if there's a tactic that you think is good that no one else is doing that could be your signature, but you're not going to enjoy doing it,
Yeah, then it's
especially doing it when it probably is not exactly working. Because that was what Kobe talked about. He said, like, you get really, really good when you love the monotony, when you fall in love with the boring practice.
Oh, yeah.
That's when
yeah.
you're really good.
Yeah, I think I could. It's just but it's often it's hard, It's like who's the first sheik to like Toph, right? Like he was the first guy to reaction tech chase. It's probably
But I bet he's that sadistic kind of person
where he
who
likes
was
it.
enjoying it when
Yeah.
it wasn't working.
Right. Long enough to be able to do it when it was working, and now everyone does
And
it.
also, like, if it's difficult, which obviously tech chasing on reaction is difficult,
It's
like
difficult,
it just
yeah.
is. When you go into a set and you get like 3 grabs and you don't follow up on any of them, like, where's your mental state? Like, can it be in a place where you're just gonna, you know what I mean? Your next grab, you're gonna try it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like,
yeah.
you don't feel like you regret anything about those first 3 or all the practice you did leading up to that moment. Do you know what I mean?
I do. Because like, especially in a tournament set, you're sitting there and you're like, oh, if I mean, like, I kind of thought he was going to take in place if I just up smashed or whatever. And then you start doubting your practice and things
That's
like
right.
that. Yeah.
Doubting yourself. Because let me tell you, Toph, I talk a lot about neighborhood P, but I'm starting to think like the thing that I really lost was jumping off stage and SDing. And then when Phil would say, hey, that was stupid, just being like, fuck you, Phil. This is how I play the game. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Like I lost the willingness to do something that doesn't work and have fun doing it. I had fun doing the wrong thing or doing the scar. I had fun doing it. And that was more important than whether it worked or whether it didn't.
Yeah. As we found out, because I think we move forward in the Melee meta, and it turns out, like, yeah, you can jump off stage with Falcon, and, you know, and it works, and it's good.
Absolutely.
It was good
question.
all along.
No one was doing it enough. No one was doing it enough. It was good all along.
Yeah.
And I knew it was good all along.
Right. You had a feeling.
I just didn't want to hear it from Phil.
Or Neighborhood P.
Yeah, I didn't really. Yeah. But P, I think, did something. There was something different there, but
yeah. Phil, yeah.
I didn't like it because I felt like he was right in a certain way that like I would win so much more.
Yeah.
If I had like a little bit more discipline.
Yeah.
Which I feel like is really what he was saying, but I took it to mean something else where it was like you either, you know what I mean?
Bobby,
I don't know. Black and white.
I don't know if I ever talked to you about this. I had this whole period where I was pissed off at something P said too, and it got me worried. If I've never really talked about this, and it got me worried that, like, you know, they say in there's like a world where like the most biting insults or whatever or criticisms are the ones where you feel like, oh, is this guy onto something, right?
Yeah.
And he was calling me. It was on Smashboards or something, and I had this whole thing with P where P was a big. I think this was everyone. If you were above a certain level of notoriety, P was either your biggest fan or your biggest hater, and he would flip on you like that.
Yep.
Right? Yeah, you experienced that.
That was my experience.
Yeah, and he was a big Toph fan, and he used to say, you know, this guy's going places, you know, this guy's sick, blah, 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 all this stuff, you know. And then, I don't remember when this was. God, this must have been like 2011. This must have been 2011, because 2010 or 2011. I think this was when I was living in Japan, or right after I moved back. But he said something like, you know, I realized he said you were how did he word it? He said you were purely derivative. He was like, everything you do is like built off something, like he's like, you want to be Silent Wolf Jr. this, and you know, when you you're like, everything you do is just like something Silent Wolf did 2 years ago or whatever. And like the way you look at the game is like it's just whatever you see on the Fox forums, on Smashboards or whatever. And you know, like he was saying, you know, when was this? This was before I got into commentary. It might have been after. No, it must have been before I got into commentary. If this was after I got into commentary, he would have said something like, you know, and yeah, you know, you commentate and you're just piggybacking off your co-commentator, like, you know, blah blah blah, whatever. And I was like, oh my god, like this is so, like, what if this is true? And it really got to me, because I felt like, if anything, I was like, at the time, I was like, wow, like, this guy that I barely know, that I don't really like hang out with or anything, that I don't even really talk to online very often, has said something about myself that is making me think. And it doesn't bother me anymore, because I think I know myself well enough at this point, but it really got to me at the time, and it pissed me off. And I wonder though, now looking back, because P didn't really know me very well, I wonder if, like you are implying, what if he meant just some very small random thing, and he just kind of says it, because I think he's the kind of guy that takes a small thing and says it, and it turns it into a platitude. And what if it's just the effect where he said one thing that like happened to resonate with me, and so I took it hella seriously? And do you think that's what happened to you? Like, I almost wonder if he just saw you SD one time, and he just said this thing because it, like, you know, he just wanted to say something. Kobe.
Missed.
Dude,
it was close though.
You could have said it went in, but that wouldn't have been the integrity move.
Yeah, no way.
You know what I mean? It's just like,
I do know what you mean, but as you were telling that story, I was thinking to myself, damn, dude, that guy was on so much drugs that I think that he actually found the perfect way to like pinpoint people's insecurities and like hit it. He became an artist.
Yeah.
So that feels to me like a little bit more deliberate than what you're describing.
You think so?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Maybe you're right.
I do.
Yeah, maybe you're right.
I think that Phil is trying to help me. I think Neighborhood P was not.
Yeah. I
don't think his intent was to help. His intent was to do some weird shit.
Yeah, it really, I mean, but it really got to me, you know. I was
really
thinking,
got to
like,
me.
man,
Yeah, I know
I
what
fucking...
you mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I'm realizing at this point that it's really important to have the thing that you like to do just because it's you and there's no other reason.
I have always said, this is kind of talking about commentary real quick. I've always said that about myself. I think what I pride in myself as a commentator is that I get along very well with practically any co-commentator. I can commentate with a lot of different people, and it's fine.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that part of me actually came out of me reflecting on what P said, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, I do click with a lot of people. I do try to see and reflect a lot of other people's viewpoints. But instead of taking it as an insult or like seeing it as a negative, I'm going to turn it into a positive, and I'm going to say, well, yeah, then I'm going to make that my strength. And if you're telling me that like I can parrot other people's opinions that I see on the Fox boards, well, then I'm going to take that to its logical conclusion, and I'm going to make it my commentary style so I can commentate with anybody. And so that's what I did. I think
That's interesting.
At least partly consciously.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's actually really interesting because for me, what he said is that I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't understand. Right. I didn't understand what I was doing and why I was good. And I think, like, I need to turn that into a strength. Be like, yeah, I'm like really good when I'm not thinking too hard about it.
You were really good when you were thinking. In fact, I would go so far as to say you still are. Like, I remember, I mean, you know, this is like not as recent, but like when we used to play on the Scar and Toe show, I remember that randomly there'd be sets where, I mean, we went pretty goddamn back and forth, but like there were sets where you crushed me, and I remember feeling like
there were sets where you crushed me too. Yeah,
but the sets where you crushed me, it always felt like you never whizzed me in once.
If I was trying to whiz you, it was like, all right, this is
well, then I'd win because you know you were in your own head or whatever. And I had this exact talk with Sam. Who I talked to a lot about fighting games and Smash and stuff. We've been playing a lot of Grand Blue. But back in Melee, he used to say that, you know, every set you've ever beaten me in tournament, we talk about in the context of the Smash documentary, there's the ball of white hot fire in the computer and cool as a cucumber. And he said, you have only ever beaten me in tournament as a ball of white hot fire. And anytime I've ever tried to laser cap him and cap him to death, I've lost.
You never win?
Never.
That's pretty interesting.
Well, I'm like, okay, I you know, so there's two things I can do, and I think this is where a lot of players branch off, right? And I've had this too. Either you're like, these are my weaknesses and these are my strengths. I'm going to patch my weaknesses, or I'm going to play to my strengths. And I spent many years patching my weaknesses, and I think those years made me actually kind of like not enjoy playing Melee. And you could take this, you know,
yeah.
I think you would take this.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Right?
That's pretty interesting, yeah. I'm actually even thinking about how when you play somebody who you think is better than you, sometimes you'll play a different style, right? You'll play more defensively. You'll try to play more optimally because like you can't afford to. But then I sit and think about that, and it's like, okay, but what if you're good, relatively speaking, playing aggressively, and bad, playing defensively?
Right.
Now you're playing people who are better than you, worse. Like with your play style, that's worse.
Yeah, and oh god, dude, this happens to everybody, man. I was watching last week I was me and my roommate Cactuar, we entered a net play tournament, and Cactuar had to play IBDW, and I felt, and you know who's a better player now, and that's exactly what I thought watching the set. I was like, Charlie's playing completely different, and of course he's not going to win doing that because you're not practiced. You don't practice like that. So
you're not good at that style.
Yeah, you're not good at that style.
But you feel, I mean, it probably like drags the set out longer or something. Like there's got to be a reason why we feel like it's smart.
I think some people are okay. Well, my theory is that some people are good at the way you do it is you don't start, if you want to do a different style to beat somebody, you have to lab it. You have to like practice, you have to sit down, right? This is what I'm bad at, but then you turn it into a strength. You practice it so much. I remember there was this period where I'm way better at ledge dashing on the right ledge, but there was actually a period where I was practicing ledge dashing a lot, and I actually got to where I practiced 90%. I practiced on the left ledge, and I actually got to where in tournament between stocks, if I wanted to ledge dash between stocks, I would go to the left ledge because I've been practicing it so much that it took me back to my practice. But generally speaking, I'm better at ledge dashing on the right ledge. So I remember thinking it's so funny that now I've made you have to turn your weakness in with strength. But then I think a lot of people lie to themselves and they say that I patch my weakness when really they don't, because we do that as people. And I think we see people do this. We see successful people patch their weaknesses and do the thing that they didn't used to do, and it works. But then we say to ourselves, "Well, I can do that too," and then we just can't because we haven't put the honest practice and the honest time into it that we thought we like to think we did. Like look at look at someone like PP or something, right? Like PP, I think is the kind of player where he when you watch PP, like everything he does makes sense, and it looks like he's just labbed every neutral situation out. And you look at that and you're like, that looks pretty simple. I can do that. Okay, he's just shooting lasers, blah blah blah. I can do that. But like, it's not easy to be a PP. He makes it look easy, but it's not easy. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm like reading the chat. I feel like I'm thinking about what you're saying and reading the chat. I'm just thinking about what are we really saying?
Splendid SSBM. That's how I took around off. I want to hear that story. I love Street Fighter stories. I think
charging right into what the other person's game plan is, like you fall right into the trap. Because like, if I'm playing normal aggressive Falcon, and that's how I'm good, and then the Sheik's prepared for normal aggressive Falcon, then their prep is all about my style.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I could still just do it anyway.
Right. And it becomes a very different set. It's the set where it's like they're coming at you directly and they're expecting one thing, and you can say, I accept, and I'm going to do what you think I'm going to do, but I'm going to trust that I can do it really good. Or you can take the other route and you could say, okay, I'm going to subvert you. I'm going to do something different. And then we're both not going to be prepared.
It doesn't feel good to get stuffed.
No.
Someone in chat said that. You get stuffed 5 times and then you stop.
Yeah.
G-pipes. Yeah. It doesn't feel good. It feels bad.
Yeah.
And then you don't want to do it anymore. Plus, you kind of know on some level that it won't work. Doing the same thing over and over is not going to work. So what's the distinction between adaptation?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I ever
self-abandonment or whatever we're getting at here,
I think if I had the fully fleshed out answer, I would have become a top player instead of, or whatever, right? Like I don't know.
Well, we need to find a way to tell the difference between the two.
How do you deal with this? And I feel like you can apply this to everything. I feel like in I don't know, like in life, right? I just feel like there's like a lot of instances where it's like, do I keep doing what I'm doing because I know I can do it, or do I try something new? And you see success with both sometimes. So it's kind of hard to say. There's no real way to generalize it. Splint and I are talking about chess.
This is making me think about something I've been considering for a little while. I'm just gonna ask you a random question, Toph. Say you're on the beach, you're by yourself. It's a nice day, and someone who is not gonna hurt you. It's just like a beach. It's like not a like has a let's just say it's a football. They kind of throw the football towards you, and like I'm assuming you're able to catch a football if it's thrown towards you.
Yeah.
Football's probably a bad example. You've played football before, right?
Yeah.
Are you unfamiliar with any ball?
Am I unfamiliar with any ball? Ooh,
frisbee?
Sure, frisbee. Yeah.
Frisbees?
Yeah, I don't know.
Not throw a frisbee and you catch a frisbee. Like, what are you thinking about when you catch the frisbee? Just paint this picture in your head. You can make up what the other person looks like. I don't need to know.
What am I thinking about when I catch a frisbee?
Yeah, like where's your head? What do you? Just.
It's like catching it. Keep your eye on it.
And then after you've caught it, what do you do? How do you determine what to do? Imagine you can't communicate with words for whatever reason. Maybe you can.
You kind of move with it a little bit because you kind of got to you know what I mean? You kind of like.
What are you going to do next?
Throw it back, I guess.
You're going to throw it back.
What
are you thinking about in the, no. What are you looking at? What are you thinking about when you throw it back?
Thinking about the wind. Maybe. Thinking about.
You could also say you're not really thinking about much.
I'm not thinking about much. In reality, I'm not thinking about much.
You're probably looking at the other person.
I'm looking at the other person for sure. I'm Thinking if I'm gonna mess up the throw. I probably am thinking a little bit I'm gonna mess up the throw.
You might not be. I think Toph. I think that probably when I hear you say that, so the question that I'm asking myself in the back of my mind when I ask this front of the question is like, what are you related? What are you more in relationship with? Are you more in relationship with this other person or with the frisbee?
Oh, I see. Sorry. Yeah, I spent so much time thinking. Yeah, I mean, yeah. If I was on the beach by myself and a random guy threw a frisbee at me, I think it'd be more of the person. I think my first thought would be like, who is this person? What do they want out of me?
Yeah, and I didn't want to ask the back of the question. I wanted to ask the front of the question because I think that I'm going to get a better answer that way.
Well,
I think that you're right. You would have been right either way. But I think the way you told it to me, it's like you're not thinking about much. You're going to catch a frisbee. You're looking at the other person, and you're just going to kind of throw it. Just going to kind of throw it.
Oh my God, Jared! Thank you for the $500. Holy shit! Hi Toph, I'm the guy who DM'd you the Scar and Toph tribute song. Yep, comment video. It'd be awesome to see you, too. Yeah, definitely. Why can I not read the whole message in chat? God damn it. Well, dude, Jarrett, thank you so much. Yeah, I'll try to find that, and I might actually try to play it, as the outro or something, because that's fucking
Thank you
hype.
very much,
Thank
Jared.
you so
That's
much,
so
Jarrett.
dope.
That's super duper dope.
Hope you're enjoying.
How do I see that? Can I see? Oh, I have a dashboard. I'm gonna go to the dashboard so I can read the rest of the message. Bobby, keep going, because I'm definitely listening.
Yeah, I'll keep going. I tend to relate to the frisbee. In other words, if I'm holding the frisbee, I'm thinking to myself about how a frisbee works.
Yes.
I'm thinking about the mechanics of the frisbee. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking about the frisbee and my interaction with the frisbee and the universe such that I can get it to the other person. But the other person is more like a point in space. See what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
I'm relating to the frisbee and like the universe or whatever, not this other person.
Do you think that's like largely because you are? I mean, you made it a point to think of a type of object that is unfamiliar. Is that because a frisbee is like a disc that you just don't throw very often, and so you have to think about it more? Is that kind of where you're going with this?
I felt that it would elicit the answer from you that I wanted to get. It should not be a thing you're really familiar with, because then you're really comfortable with the ball. I wanted there to be a question in your mind about like, what do I need to think more about? Like the ball or this other person? Like what's more interesting, or what moves? You see what I'm trying to say? Like what's more?
Yeah.
I think in Melee, we have a tendency to, and I think as gamers, we have a tendency to relate a little too much to the ball.
Yeah.
To the frisbee.
Okay.
And so what I mean by that is, and this actually really is hitting me because of what Luna said, which I think this is a thought that torments me. What am I supposed to do? Now, supposed to do is a thought where you're like only relating to like one or the other, I think.
Yeah.
Definitely, I feel like in Melee, there's an answer to what I'm supposed to do. And then sometimes, I guess, if you're talking like in social situations, you're supposed to do something or not. But yeah, I think like, okay, Falcon versus this Sheik. The Sheik is prepped for my stuff, and I am doing something that is stubborn or whatever. Like, it's not working. And if I'm trying to make it, you know what I mean? Like, you kind of have to know what you're in relationship with, and we're always in relation with like both. Because like you're playing this game with this other person.
This was the whole classic. This used to be a big deal. This was the whole West Coast versus East Coast thing.
East Coast.
This was the whole West Coast versus East Coast thing. I think for probably a lot of, I mean, that distinction doesn't really exist anymore. But back in like the early 2010s, it sure did. And that was
are you playing the player or are you playing the matchup?
And it was so shaped by who the top players were, because at the time it was Mewtwo King of the East and Mango of the West. And Mango was the best at playing the player, and Mewtwo King was the best at playing the frisbee, right? And yeah, that definitely changed a lot over the years. Like the players themselves, Mango got better at playing the frisbee. Mewtwo King, I would argue I would categorize him today as more of a play the player kind of guy. If I'm actually watching his matches, I would actually say, and even listening to the way he talks about the game, I would categorize Mewtwo King as more of a play the player kind of guy. But yeah, that was the whole dichotomy, and I think that this was something I was talking about a lot or thinking about at least a lot at the last summit. Someone said this, and it was really elegant, but it was like, okay, Leffen and IBW, whatever, all the Fox players complaining about Marth. And then someone brought up like, well, what is HBox doing with all the Foxes? It might have even been you. It was somebody. I don't know. It might have even been you. It might have even been you, Bobby. It must have been somebody. It must have been somebody. Do you want to just paraphrase it? The thing that
That somebody said?
The thing that somebody said. Do you want to
I
paraphrase
think
it?
what you said is the best I remember it.
Someone at home.
It was like relating the idea that, yeah, I mean, Hungry Box lost to Fox and kind of like had to reinvent the matchup.
Yeah, but he didn't really do it. I mean, okay, it's a little hard to characterize.
Yeah, maybe I don't even remember it exactly, but I do remember it happened, but I don't remember the full setup.
Yeah. It's a little hard to paint black and white because I'm sure that there was a lot of play the frisbee type of stuff that HBox brought to the table in the Fox matchup that I don't feel comfortable talking about because I haven't labbed Puff versus no one's labbed Puff versus Fox the way HBox has and Crunch. But clearly he also did a lot of play the player stuff. Like he knows there's one thing I noticed when studying his matches was like he's really good at he'll go to the side platform. He'll go to the side, like on Battlefield, like he'll go to the side platform and kind of chill there for a second, and then the Fox will start to back up and shoot lasers, and then he'll come in and he'll get under the Fox as they start to laser, and then he'll like snipe them with backers. So that's like a play the player type of thing. Play the like the Fox doesn't have to start shooting lasers, but you're baiting them to do so because it's a very common response when you see Puff go to the side platform. And then the whole point was like, well, dude, if HBox has to do that sort of thing to beat Foxes, but it's clearly working, that's what the Foxes have to start doing to beat Zane. And Zane's just one Marth. There aren't 5 Marths running amok like Zane. It's just the one. So you can lab him. You know.
That's true.
If there are 5 top-level Marths, the way there are 5 top-level Foxes beating HBox, maybe it's a little bit of a different story, but HBox is even able to do that. If it's just Zane, you could figure Zane out, probably. Unless you're really saying, you know, he's that good. He's that airtight.
Yeah.
You
Smith is saying, so as you're saying this, underscore was saying that Fox players might be more frisbee or something. I do think that there's something there. So one of the other things that I've been working on, I don't know about y'all, but I feel like, you know, COVID, there's a bunch that could be said about it, but it's taking me out of the normal environment of the workplace.
Yes.
I'm like not physically there.
Yep.
And I don't know. I just feel like I feel like I'm able to change a lot more easily now that I'm in a weird, different environment. I don't know if y'all feel that way too, but just trying to say that now is a pretty good time to be thinking about some weird stuff.
To take stock.
And somebody in chat will explain, right? For Halo's phase whisper. There's people in chat, and I don't want to leave anybody behind, but I think somebody will explain.
Yeah.
Where was I?
You're talking about in COVID, quarantine,
Thank you.
Different physical responses to things.
One of the other things I've been thinking about is control. Have we ever talked about control?
I was explaining to Halos control. In what context?
We were talking about control.
Control of
the human desire, my desire, your desire, the desire of
control.
every single person to have control over things.
Yes, things and processes and your lifestyle and
control over outcomes. Control.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Have we ever talked about that?
No, not really, no.
All right, that's something that's happening in every single human.
Yeah.
You want to control things.
Yeah.
Why do we I was thinking about why do we think about things in the first place? You thought about why we think about things? Why is it good to think about things?
We think about things because we're curious about them.
Mm-hmm. So sometimes it's fun. Sometimes it's just an end in itself. That's
sometimes
true.
It's just fun. But yeah, I mean, okay, I don't know. You might be walking me down this path, but yeah, a lot of times we think about things because we want to control them, I guess.
We think to like explore, to understand, and we seek to understand so that we can manipulate to our own ends.
Right.
Which is another way of saying control the situation.
Right. Or at least have our own outcome be not unaffected by like we'll try to understand things so they don't mess with us.
And I feel that when I think about a Fox and I think about their approach to the Marth matchup, I definitely sense in Foxes a desire to control through like the restriction of options and like some kind of calculation through the game. You know what I mean?
Bobby,
there is an element of control in the Fox mindset.
Yes. Have I ever told you that every single thing we talk about, like Drug Fox tells me in one of our lessons? We were breaking down a match, and he was like, "Okay, you have the lead here," and then I did some stupid shit. And I was like, fuck it, let's go in, right? And he was
Let's
like,
go, dude.
why'd
Let's
you
go.
do
Let's
this?
go.
Yeah,
Fuck it,
yeah,
dude.
yeah. And he's like,
Let's go.
He's like, what's actually happening at the moment before you go in here? And I'm like, this was in Granblue, which is a 2D fighter. And it's a game where, you know, basically I the life lead. It's a very Street Fighter-y game. So if you can picture this, I have the life lead. I have like 80%. My opponent is like 40%. I've got the life lead in a round. We're mid-screen. He like, you know, I'm blocking. He like jabs me on my wake up or whatever. And I push a button and I get counter hit and I take a fat amount of damage. And you ever heard Take the Throw? Have you heard Take the Throw in the context?
I have heard Take the Throw.
I'm sure you've heard Take the Throw. And he was like, you know, why'd you push a button here? And I was like, well, I don't know. I thought he might take throw me. I thought that might be unpleasant. And then we started talking about. Anyway, we drilled down to the fact that at the end of the day, I was not happy not having control, and I wanted it back. And I felt like I needed to make something happen, but I didn't. It wasn't the reality. If I was commentating the match, as a commentator, I might have said something like, "Oh, you know, he's got to open him up here. If he doesn't, if the opponent doesn't do something, you know, he's gonna lose on time or something like that, right? Like, there's only, you know, fighting game rounds are a lot shorter than Smash. But as a player, I'm just fucking pushing buttons like a dummy because I don't know why. Because there's something deep inside of me that I don't know why. There's
deep inside you that you don't understand.
I don't understand it yet.
That's right,
but
dude.
I'm just sitting there like, well, and I'm looking at it. I'm watching myself push this button. I'm like, God, if I was a commentator here, I'd say that wasn't very smart.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as a player, isn't that fucked? I think that's why people.
That is really funny.
I don't know, man.
That is really funny. I feel like I've been thinking about like, well, okay, why do we want where's that come from, right? We can talk about control and why we want it and what it could mean to do less of it or whatever, but like why do we want it in the first place? Like what does it mean? Like what does it get us? Like what do we feel? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think it's that's a pretty interesting question I've been thinking about a lot. And I can sense that it's even more interesting when we talk about this because of that idea that as a Fox, you're so deep, you've already taken on, you've already put so much stock into the control path.
Yeah.
The illusion of control that it's very difficult to say, okay, versus Marth, like my game plan does not include control.
Oh God, that's so true. That is
I feel with HBox, like his game plan does not include control.
No,
he lets you do whatever. He gives you rope. He does not control the match.
Yeah.
He controls you. He does not control your character. He controls you, the person.
And there's like there's also like an illusion of control kind of thing.
Yeah,
we
don't control anything. Like, yeah, we don't control shit. Yeah.
It's like, well, with HBox, I also feel like in the moments that he's also very good at relenting the illusion of control, where he makes the opponent feel like they can do anything they want, and that's where he takes his edge, where it's like he makes the opponent feel like I can do anything I want, and then HBox doesn't need control over everything. He just needs control over, well, yeah, you said it, the opponent. Or to put it more concretely, like he wants them to do a specific thing, and he's very good at saying, you know what, you can do whatever you want, so and because you can do whatever you want, you will do the specific thing that I'm looking for, which is how he turns it all around and clutch boxes you. I mean, I don't even know. I might be
what's the deal with all this?
But yeah,
I don't think you are. He's doing something along those lines.
Splendid says, "I love blocking." God, I'm gonna put that in my Evernote.
I love blocking too.
I love. Oh man,
I love blocking too.
Yeah, blocking's really good. There's this, you know, the really famous Leffen versus Goichi set in Dragon Ball FighterZ. Everyone, it's probably the set that has the most views. I don't know if you ever watched this set. It was when Leffen was really into Dragon Ball. Everyone calls it like it's like one of the best sets that ever happened in that game. And Leffen was up game 3, outside of top 8, so you know it's 2 out of 3. And game 3, and Leffen's up 3 characters to 1. And the commentators call it. One of the commentators says Leffen's about to beat Goichi, the best player in the world. And then Goichi blocks everything that happens. Goichi doesn't lose life outside of chip damage for over a minute and a half. He just and it's you watch it and it's just like he's blocking everything. And you know, it's insane. It's very hard to do this in a game like Dragon Ball, but it's like, why can't I pride myself on that? Maybe I should.
Why not?
And the funny thing is, you're sitting there, you're blocking. When I'm blocking, I feel like I don't have control. But sometimes when I'm playing an opponent that's really good at blocking, I feel even worse. I feel like, oh, they're blocking everything I'm doing, and I'm having to want to push all the buttons, and nothing's working, and it actually feels even worse. And I don't, oh, God. Yeah, I'm realizing I have a long way to go.
I think we probably all do.
Yeah.
But it's cool. Yeah, we got to figure out how do we make the journey fun, dog? That's what everybody's been telling us to figure out how to do.
Mm-hmm.
So Joe Hoslito said, Mango said the only reason HBox beats him is because Mango doesn't respect him as a good player. I don't know if that's recent. But I know he said it in the past.
In the past, yeah.
But then I said parenthetically, like in parentheses, HBox gives up all control. Now I'm curious as to what he means by that exactly, because
it's nuanced.
Yeah, I kind of see some like giving up control over whether the. Hang on. Goes against everything that demands respect in Melee. Yeah, there's something about what he's saying that I think is like important. I don't know.
It's like
he even gives up control over the idea that like, right, that he'll look good doing it or something. It's like there's like nothing. It's like you're just, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like this might be like one of those things where it's like the personality is reflected in the gameplay or whatever, where I think Jose is saying something along the lines of like HBox is saying it's like his persona and kind of what he embodies is like the player that you don't like, people who are onlookers don't want him to win because he's like playing lame or whatever. And like that feeds into the way HBox fights you, where it's like Mango fights HBox. There's kind of this implicit, unwritten agreement going into the set that Mango is going to be running and gunning, and he's going to be the guy making, calling all the shots and making all the plays, and HBox is the one who's going to be kind of on the receiving end. And HBox is saying, I understand that we have this agreement going into the set as the types of players we are, and you're the one that's going to be making all the cool plays whenever. And HBox is saying, I'm totally down to play you in that game, and it's going to actually help me win, because that's exactly where I want to be mentally, and that's where I want to be in the matchup. HBox's position as the number one player that somehow. Well, I do think this is older though. Like I've heard more recently on Mango stream.
Agree with that take, but...
Yeah. I've heard more recently on Mango stream. Like I've heard Mango say that he thinks HBox is really good. Mango more recently has said he thinks Mewtwo King is his least favorite playstyle, where Mewtwo King is just trying to cheese him or whatever. And I think more recently Mango doesn't really. He's never really been a huge Puff hater. Like kinda. Here and there, but like Mango has historically a lot of the time kind of been like a Puff as an overrated character kind of guy, right? Mango's like kind of big on saying like Puff actually sucks, blah blah blah, yeah, and like and it's and actually these days when I hear Mango complain about people's playstyles, the player I hear him make fun of the most for like playing lame or whatever is actually Mewtwo King.
Yeah, me too.
Which
I feel like interpersonally, HBox is like aggressive and passive, aggressive and defensive, and like all that stuff, like interpersonally. So when you talk about relating to people in the game, or relating to people as people, yeah, I don't think that it's possible to say that like that the community's reacting to him outside of his reactions interpersonally with like the community and the microphone and stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like he's usually has something to say about like people like this, like blah, 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 or people like that, blah, blah, blah. Or I don't like when this happens. I don't like, you know what I mean? I can sense the struggle, and it's almost maybe a feeling of control in the interpersonal realm.
Yeah.
Where much of maybe we generally, like a lot more people let go of control in that way, right? Like what the culture is going to be, how other people are going to react to us in real life.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a mirror image kind of thing. Cause usually that's the way that these things, quote unquote, tend to go. Like if HBox he gives up all control in the game, like it would make sense if he struggles with that in real life. Like usually there's something mirror image about the way that we play and the way that we like live or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think it's much rarer it is rare to find people where that's not the case. It's rare to find people where their in-game struggles and their out-of-the-game struggles are not in alignment. I think that's more rare.
Yeah.
At least in Melee. I maybe that's just because Melee is so expressive, but at least in Melee that's the case. I'm sure it's the case with every game if you drill into it. Because like, I mean, that's why people have, I mean, I kind of have this theory. That's why people, people will take losses really hard, right? And they'll lose a tournament and they'll be in a funk and they'll be like, blah, 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 this and that. And they're feeling down. And I think that's kind of why, right? Because like, it's not fully, they are mirror images to a certain degree. And so sometimes you lose to a certain thing and you kind of, deep down, you kind of feel like there's something in your character that's lacking. I don't mean character like an in-game character. I mean your personality, this character, Yeah, it's just crazy that it fucking happens at like the top level, It's crazy that it yeah.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy.
Yeah. People's biggest enemy is their own ego. It's funny. Yeah, I don't know, man. Felt like a natural disaster rather than a player. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I feel like HBox doesn't really well, I don't think he's really super open about who he is and what his motivations are. It's like the motivation thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've thought about that a bunch too. I was thinking about like in nature or whatever, where there's a tree or branch.
Yeah.
It's like we have this sense of things being inanimate. Like I even brought up a tree. I was thinking about saying something that's inanimate, but like a tree's not inanimate. It's like literally alive, but it acts like without any, you know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't have like its own agency.
Right.
It's not like trying to do anything besides like stand there or whatever. If you pull the branch, like that it's going to snap back, but like, it's telling you really clearly what it's going to do. There's like no deception.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about how, things seem to have like agency or not. And so we could say that like quicksand or whatever is like sneaky or dangerous, but it's just like sand,
Yeah.
But it feels in some way more alive or something than like a rock. I don't know. I'm just trying to talk about how, we can see intent and motivation in things. And then in other things, we kind of can't really see it. And that like changes how we relate to it. I don't feel like HBox has ever really said, like, where are you moving? Like, where are you going? Like, where are you trying to go? Like, what are you trying to do here? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Whereas I feel like Leffen, I know just through his words and actions, like where he's
and
going,
tweets.
what within like is moving him through the world. Same with Mango, more or less.
Same with Mutant
definitely
King.
Armada, definitely Mutant King. Yeah, it's like super clear.
Yeah.
But yeah, HBox, it's like, I don't know. Yeah. So it's hard to commentate him because I can't make him like, I can't point to that thing that's within him that's moving him through our space or whatever's going on.
I remember this was a big thing at Smash Summit 6. It was the one where he got sent to losers really early because he lost to Omson Pools, and he was crushing it in losers, and he tore through a bunch of players, and it was like the commentators didn't even really know how to talk about it because on one hand he's like in losers and he's got a lot of hard matches in front of him, but like on the other hand we kind of feel like we talk about losers Mango a certain way. We talk about like how Mango like is kind of like he plays differently in losers, whatever, and we kind of are familiar enough with it, and Mango himself talks about it enough, like he talks about his mindset, but we don't really know kind of what's going through HBox's head. Are we supposed to talk about him like he's like the favorite? Are we supposed to talk about him like he got upset, or like he does worse or better in losers? And it's kind of hard to tell where he's coming from. And so to a certain degree, you kind of have to extrapolate. But is Plup different? I don't know. I feel like yes. Plup's,
I think yes.
He's a quiet dude.
I think yes.
I feel Absolutely. Like watching him play, it's really obvious. And like he gets frustrated at like predictable things. He likes predict. Like I feel like when I watch him play, like especially when you watch Plup against like bad players, there's like a certain way Plup beats people where it's like it's kind of easy to tell what he's all about. But again, who knows how much of it is like Puff and just the fact that maybe if HBox was playing, like I don't know, Puff is weird. Like I think this comes back to the control thing. I don't think Puff can play in a way where you're controlling everything and you're controlling all the variables. Like Puff doesn't have the frame data to do it. So from that perspective, and this kind of ties into like your character kind of like fits into who you are as a player. It's like, Yeah, if you're a frame data monster and you need control over all the variables and like you want to be the kind of player where it's like if I'm playing perfect, no one can touch me, like you just can't do that with Puff. And if HBox
Hmm.
had started with a different character from the very beginning, who knows? It might just be extremely like it might just we might not be having this conversation at all, right? Yeah, I don't
What did
know.
you say? What did you say before you said we might not be having this conversation at all?
Like if HBox was not a Puff player, like if he just got good with
Yeah.
a different character, we might not be having this conversation. Like if he was like a Falco player from the beginning or something, like
Yeah.
I think he just evolves into a different, and we commentate him differently, and like
I can't even imagine. Really, like I feel like he couldn't be who he is.
yeah, I remember having like this. Yeah, I have this sense watching certain play. It's like watching. There was a period where Mute King, like Mute King, I saw Mute King go Falco in some friendlies or something, and I was just like, this is the weirdest shit ever. Like Mute King playing Falco is fucking weird.
Yeah.
Hugo playing any character that's not Samus feels really wrong. Hugo just cannot play non-Samus characters.
Yeah.
Right? It's
Yeah.
like,
I think
Hugo plays a
especially.
character that's not Samus. It's like, what are you doing, dude? Come on.
Yeah, it's just a
Hey,
joke.
you just get out of town.
When we were just talking about this, I was thinking like I almost feel like most players in Melee, they have some kind of ideal that they're chasing about like how they want to play.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They want to like be able to play the way that they want to play.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like we're kind of chasing that ideal.
Yeah.
And when I think about Mango, it's not exactly that. And in my mind, it has something to do with poking the other players, like poking them as people, like getting under their skin.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's an element of him that like really cares about how he relates to each other individual player in a really interesting way.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
And still with, I'm kind of like taking that and then I'm looking to HBox and I still don't see either really. I don't see him caring about the other players as individuals really that much at all.
Yeah.
And
I don't think so either.
and I don't feel that he has some kind of like ideal of Puff that he's chasing after.
I don't think so. Although I'm willing to say it's possible he doesn't. I can't tell. I'm not.
I feel like
but I feel like you're right.
If he did in the same way that Leffen does, for example, right? Then I think we would be able to tell.
Yeah, he'd at least talk about it. I don't think I've ever seen HBox tweet about Puff. Weren't we talking to Army about this when Army was on the reads? Weren't we talking to Army? I remember we had a conversation with Army which loosely summed up as like ICs are in a weird state because of the whole wobbling ban. But like if you've got and it's like and he felt like he didn't know how to talk about it, right? Army felt like he didn't know how to talk about it because he thought people might misconstrue his intentions and people might think that he was just being selfish and just acting selfishly. Of course you don't want wobbling to be banned, like you want to succeed in tournaments or whatever. But he had legitimate like outside of him, and his own success, he had ideals that he had arrived at because he's played the character at a high level, and he had legitimate bona fide opinions that were interesting, and he didn't know how to present them because he felt like if he did present them, people would read him the wrong way. And I think we said to him, you should just say it, and if you are authentic, people will sense that authenticity and they will go along with you and they'll meet you where you are. And I don't think HBox has ever had anyone tell him that. Or he doesn't think he can do it. Because I don't think he's ever really... I want to see HBox present the Puff side of things. I want to see HBox talk about...
I know, I want to know the Puff side of things too.
I want to see what that's like. I want to see what the struggles are from... I mean, maybe he feels like if he ever opens up in that manner, it will shatter the illusion and people will be able to beat him more easily, which I also totally buy. I totally buy that if he starts complaining about... complaining might be... It's such a loaded word these days. If he starts, talking about the struggles Puff has in the Fox matchup, the Fox players will just clue in on that and start beating him relentlessly. I totally get that, and if he thinks that's the case, then I respect him for doing what he's doing. Winning is probably more important. But I wish... the selfish side of me and the commentator side of me does wish that I got to see that and read and hear that out of him,
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think about how does this guy see the game?
Yeah.
I feel like as we talk about this, it just seems I was also thinking about Zane because Zane doesn't clearly fit as a Leffen type, or whatever, a Leffen.
Yeah,
Mewtwo
yeah.
King. Like,
Zane,
he's not really that. He's a little more
no,
mango.
I figured Zayn out. I figured Zayn out. Zayn is I figured Zayn out. I totally know. I actually asked Zayn this, and he said yes. So like I know I'm right. Like he admitted it. Zayn is just Westballs. He's Marth Westballs taken to the extreme. So Westballs is this thing, right? If you've ever seen Westballs, you know when Westballs is just stunning on somebody, and like he just starts doing this one thing over and over, and it like looks really sick when it works, and if it doesn't work, he kind of keeps going for it. If you ever watch Zayn against players that he will for sure beat, he just does this. He'll like be up 2 stocks, and then he'll just crouch there and try to power shield up tilt you. And like he tries to hit these very specific combos, and he tries to do these zero. And I mean, like that was like how he kind of started his motivation, and led to the logical conclusion of he kept doing the disrespectful Westballs options until they started working. Like, and then he worked backwards, and then he was like, okay, well, I can get this to work when I brute force it. Now let's figure out the times when I actually should be doing it and apply it to my overall. So then he's kind of got this ideal where he's got this very deep bag of Westballsy tricks, but he took it to the next level and like also found the times. And I think Westballs himself too, when Westballs was at his peak, like when Westballs was top 10 in the world, I think this is what he played like. He had this deep bag of tricks, very technical, very cool looking, and when he played against the best players, he would hit the shit that he hit against newbies, but at the right times, and that's why it worked. And it looked really cool. And I think Zayn is that. I think they're very similar in terms of their motivations, and kind of their ideals as their characters. I ran this whole thing by Zayn, and he like
there's something there that's very different, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like what you're describing, like there's an element of like. So the Fox thing, right? It's more about control. There's no sense of like, is this the kind of person where I can do this or not? Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like I'm going to impose this.
Yeah.
There's like a little bit of an invitation or an asking or a permission thing going on with the way that you describe that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like the way that I heard what you were saying, it's like, okay, can I just like do this, this kind of, can I have fun?
Yeah.
In this context. But it's not always.
No.
That's not like, and so maybe you're like looking to make it possible that you could just have fun and do whatever you want, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah. With Zayn. Yeah, that's what I think is going on.
But then what are the criteria that they in their own mind are using?
Yeah.
To make that calculation such that it's generally correct. I mean, that's the other part about Zayn.
And that part I think is just trial and error. Like he's now played in so many high level tournament sets, and he's a good enough player that he has kind of drilled down into like when do I actually apply that stuff, and when do I gotta like cool it and play to win. But that's kind of his. I think that's where he started. Maybe it's harder for me to pinpoint exactly where he's at now, but I think that's where he started.
But it can't be that he dislikes playing to win. Because if he dislikes playing to
that's
win,
not what I'm saying.
he would make the calculation in a motivated way, right? And end up trying to play the way that he wants too much, and then losing, and then get disillusioned, and then end up like the rest of us.
Maybe what we need to do is what the chat is suggesting, and maybe the next time we do this, maybe we just dial Zayn in. Maybe we just give him a piece of our minds, and maybe get a piece of his mind.
Yeah,
what do you think about that, Bobby? Maybe we should
great.
We'll just do that. How about
that'd
that?
be great.
I think that'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's yeah, Zayn. Yeah, that the permission thing you said, I think that's totally the case, and it's also bit him in the past, like that era where he was losing every Game 5 last stock scenario to Wizrobe, and and there were definitely moments where I just felt like he threw because he thought it was time to hit the brakes and have a little fun. I don't know if I ever told you this. I walked up to him at the CEO. It was CEO 2018, 2017, 2018. And I watched him throw. He was up 3 stocks to 1, game 5 against Wizzy. And he threw really hard because he had to go for the coolest combo instead of just ending it and forward smashing him or Kenko. Whatever. He had him in a combo and he went for some really slick stuff. Dropped the combo, and I said on the commentary, oh God, is Zayn going to lose this? Wizzy can just throw up air him. And that's what happened. And Wizzy brought it back in a really kind of, ho-hum kind of way. He did some basic, pretty basic combos or whatever, Wizzy stuff. And I asked Zayn later at the after party, there was an after party, and I said, Zayn, I think your only weakness is hubris. And he gave me a big hug, and he was like, "You're so right." And he's like, "Hubris," and he's like, "It's my only weakness." And I was like, "Yeah, hubris." I remind him every now and then. I just say to him because I saw him as recently as like a month ago. He made a tweet about hubris, and I was like, I gave him a little wiki face or something. This always sticks out. But he was like, "You're so right." And every time I don't talk to him that often, but when I do, we bring this up. It's like a little thing. And I think that kind of ties into that. I think he had this moment where he's like, "All right, time to stun on this fool. I got permission," as you worded it, and he he didn't actually have permission, and he fucking lost because Wizzy doesn't give permission. Wizzy's not that kind of player. Wizzy doesn't give you it. Wizzy doesn't. Wizzy's not. Wizzy doesn't care about any of that shit. Like, yeah, Wizzy's not the kind of guy at all. You don't get to do that with Wizrobe. Yeah, and it was like the most picture perfect. Like, Zayn did the Zayn thing and got Zayned by Wizzy doing the Wizzy thing, doing the Wizzying. And it was really kind of beautiful in a really funny way. It was kind of like da 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 da. It was actually hilarious looking back.
I feel like hubris, hubris pretty good. Slight hubris seems pretty good for a game like this.
Slight, yeah. I mean, you gotta know,
overestimating how good you are, right? So that you always have that upward momentum. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So you're always pushing a little bit higher than what you like. If you were a little bit more well measured,
yeah,
you would think you're capable of. Like, slightly overestimating what you're capable of.
Yeah,
that sounds like a good thing. You probably should do that.
I think that I draw this comparison with Zayn and Westballs because I think they're fundamentally similar types of people in the way that I think you and Nunn are similar players, right? Similar players, not necessarily
similar play styles. Yeah, I think we see things similarly.
Right. And people in the chat are bringing up the concept of stubbornness. Like, Westballs is very stubborn. I mean, I think that the thing Zayn did to ascend, and again, I think that Westballs was on this track in 2015 or so, or 16, when he was like top 8 in the world. I think what they both did was they actually dialed down. The stubbornness got them to where they were, and then they started chipping away at the statue, and they removed the stubbornness to get ever so better. And I think Zayn kind of did that. I think Zayn did a lot of that to get him to where he is now. Zayn also does other stuff. Like, there's other parts of Zayn that I think are really impressive. I think he's the best at labbing matchups. Like, the Puff matchup and the Pikachu matchup and the Yoshi matchup are like... That's separate. That's like a separate tangent. I think he's really good at taking matchups that no one else is really playing and then innovating them really, really hard. But that I think as players, I think that's what they did a lot, was they found the right exact level of stubbornness and the right exact level of hubris. Without, yeah.
So I just pasted meaningless.
Meaningless.com.
This is like it's called it's like a hypertext book. I've been reading it. It's really good. It's like really good, but it gets deep into this shit. It's like talking about meaning. Like, what is meaning? Where does it come from?
Tell me about it.
Like, no one understands meaning. I mean, I think that's kind of like a part of, and like, anyway, it's pretty deep, because when you talk about meaning, you can ask, what is the meaning of meaning? And then it's recursive. So it's very, very difficult to talk about. And meaning underlies, if we say mean something, right? What does anybody mean when they say anything? So it's like, okay, so thinking includes me. It's like meaning is part of what we do, like, socially.
Yeah.
Like, we're always doing meaning, always.
Right.
And I'm bringing that up because one of the things that he talks about a bunch is like how people can fixate certain things and deny other things. In other words, like, in your whole frame of mind, like, you could have a thing that doesn't move out of the way, right? It's always there. It's what you're fixated on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then in fixating something, you have to ignore everything that's not that thing that you're fixating.
Yes.
Totally. Right? Because like, it can never go away. So, and that's kind of like one way that we stay anchored so that we can create meaning, because you kind of need your axioms or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm sort of, as we're discussing this, thinking about, maybe what feels so different is that I kind of don't think that when I think about Zayn, that quote unquote how good he is fixated. Like he's not constantly asking the question like,
Yeah.
is my skill X good? Because I'll just be like, oh yeah, I'm that good. Like, quiet, and then you don't have to think about it anymore.
You
When
mean
I think
it's
about
more of a
Leffen, I think
premise with
say
him?
what?
It's like a premise with him. It's like a
Right? Yeah,
premise that he's good.
I think that's a good way to put it, like a premise. Like you could just make it an assumption, and you don't have to keep questioning it. You could stop. You could just say, oh yeah, it's this, and then move on. But I feel like for Leffen, when I think about Leffen, I feel like that question's so fixated. I feel like he needs to or wants to be that good.
Mm-hmm.
And like every time that he plays and everything he's thinking about and all the words that he says, like it has to live up. You know what
He
I mean?
needs
It's
to
like
reaffirm it.
it's always being calculated. It's fixated.
Yeah.
It's fixated. And that's one way to push your skill up is to fixate on your skill because you're always monitoring. Does this action make it go up or down?
Yeah.
That's one way to do it. But it comes with all this other stuff, right? That we're just talking about a little mechanism here. And then it's interesting to see, okay, but then that sprouts this whole Leffen system, which is totally different than the Zane system over here.
Totally.
They get
different.
along just fine, but
Yeah.
they look and feel very, very different.
Very,
they
very
respond
different.
differently to different scenarios.
You know, I was talking with Sam actually about Leffen the other day and how he's kind of changed a lot as a person, as a player.
Yeah.
Both for the better and for the worse in some ways and in other ways. And how like Sam actually brought this up. Like Leffen used to be the kind of guy, like 2014 Leffen was big on like he was the kind of player that would say like complaining about wobbling is stupid and like you should just be a better player and like you'll just win, blah blah blah. And now he like kind of wants wobbling banned. And back then, you know, he wanted to have like perfect control of his character, like perfect. He wanted to be like the perfect optimal player. Like he wanted to play, you know, like his ideal was to play perfectly and all this stuff. And now he spends a lot of time talking about, especially as he branches out in other fighting games, he spends a lot of time talking about how like, if you've ever read any of his tweets about Ultimate or like new fighting games he's picking up, like Grand Blue, etc., Dragon Ball Fighters, he's big on like, I need to play a character that is just like, I gotta stop picking up these characters that are so much work. I'm playing all the high effort, you know, high execution characters, and like someone like me who doesn't have infinite time because I'm playing all these games, like I have to stop doing this. But then he kind of like gravitates towards those characters anyway. Like he ended up playing Fairy in Grand Blue, who's like the you know, arguably the highest execution character, whatever, like the most setup oriented. And you know, back in the day, he was not that kind of player at all. And like, you know, his attitude has just kind of shifted in these little ways, right? Where it's like, in some ways, it's good. Like he's more forgiving of other people and of like non-perfect play, and he's more like grounded in practicality. But at the same time, there's like, you know, like he also used to be the kind of guy like he would like he was there's another thing Sam brought up, like he was the kind of guy, he'd be like, Dwan, you know, don't switch off Doc, you haven't fully optimized the character, you know, everyone should play who they want, like, you know, like we have so long to go as melee players, like, you know, we can flesh out our characters more, blah blah blah. And now he's all about, you know, it's not worth picking up this character or that character because they're not the absolute highest tier, and they're not gonna maximize my effort for success ratio, you know. And so he's kind of also just shifted a lot from those days.
Yeah, that's a big shift.
It's a big shift. It's a big shift.
It's kind of like embracing the what is it?
The human.
Yeah, sometimes there's just challenges that aren't worth overcoming.
Yeah. And I think in the past, even the way he talked to others, I think this is a positive change. I think in the past, Leffen was like, if you were a bad melee player, he would say like, you suck and you should be better and you don't want it bad enough. Now, if you're a bad player, he says different people have different motivations, and that's totally fine, and it's okay that you're, you know, like you don't have to be like whatever, like you're better than me, you're better at me at other things. But that and that's good. I think it's good to be forgiving of like yeah, it's good to be holistic in that approach. That's good. But the flip side is also like, in that he's kind of become this guy that's like, you know, the practical element is very important, and like people shouldn't play these like, you know, like high effort, like I can't be playing Pokemon Trainer. Pokemon Trainer isn't top 10 on the roster or whatever, and like I have to learn how to play as Squirtle, Ivysaur, and Charizard.
Right,
like,
right. It's like still absolutist, but it's not about the same thing.
Shifted, yeah. And
it shifted. That's what we do though, and like it's. I feel like one thing that I feel compelled to say at this moment is that like I think that all these people are super cool, and I mean I feel like talking about them at this level of depth and thinking about them this much, I hope that it's seen as like a compliment. and not that we're like criticizing it all,
Of course.
or that I am for sure. I'm not.
We're tweet proving ourselves right now.
I mean, I'm just saying, like that's actually what's happening. But I guess I'm tweet proving myself. But I want my intent to be clear, because I would never want people that I really sit and think about to think that I'm thinking about them because like I don't like them.
If you know, yeah, if we didn't hold them to this level of esteem, we wouldn't be talking about them at all.
Yeah, it's like super.
We've talked about Zayn, HBox, Leffen, and like we're only talking about the absolute top echelon, and that's for a reason. We're not sitting here talking about Joe Schmo.
Yeah, we're
Joe Schmo hasn't got to that level yet, Bobby.
Yeah, no, he hasn't. He hasn't seen those sites. Right? It's like how does the world look coming into their system or whatever? That's what I'm always trying to think about.
Yeah,
and I feel like it's really fun to observe how like these little you can kind of see like, okay, there's a thing, and it like moved a little bit, and then it resulted in all this change.
Yeah,
in the person.
It was an evolution in a sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like something that we're looking at is meditation talks about this a lot. This has to do with a lot of the sports psychology stuff is like, what's the output? What's the input? Like, what's the result? Yeah. What's the thing that you do?
Yeah.
And I feel like the thing that feels correct to me, the thing that feels like it kind of clicked or feels like it's not going to move is that it makes sense to me to think of M2K, Armada, Leffen, to some extent PP, as people who had a fixation on the result.
Yeah.
I feel that Armada is quite flexible in his approach to achieve the result, and so he looks a lot different.
Yeah.
Like M2K is pretty limited in how he'll achieve the result, but he also has a different way of seeing things, so it's like, and he never he's always stubborn about being M2K. Like I don't even think he has a concept of how to not be M2K, so he's perfectly stubborn about it.
Oh yeah, yeah. He's M2K is M2K.
He's actually perfectly stubborn. It's like not even a vulnerable or fragile stubbornness. It's just a stubborn. It's just never gonna move.
Never gonna move.
Yeah, and then like Leffen's a little bit more open than Armada, but not, or a little more flexible than M2K, but not as much as Armada.
Yeah.
And then thinking about Zayn, I just don't think that's fixated. I just really don't think that's fixated. I don't think that he's fixated on the outcome.
Yeah, I don't think.
Which is why the outcome can move. Like it needs to, you know what I'm saying? Like if you're fixated on the outcome, then it's not free to move the way that it can when people like have a meteoric rise. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. Do you think it's the kind of thing where it's like trying too hard? If you're fixated on the outcome, it's like you're trying too hard, so you'll never quite get the outcome you want.
Yeah, and I guess in reality, you're trying to control something, right, that you can't, because the outcome involves you and the other person. So in a certain sense, you're trying to block the other person out, which, like, you can't.
You can't.
You actually kind of can't.
This is what I think is the most beautiful part of, well, there's a lot of beautiful things. Ping pong. I think that ping pong it's like the best illustration of not being able to block the other player out. And every character kind of comes to grips with it, right? It's like Smile is so bad at blocking the other player out that he eventually quits. But that's fine, because he decides he wants to focus on the other player. That's why he becomes a teacher. And, you know, Pekko and Dragon have their little thing, et cetera, et cetera. Kong tries to block the other player out, but then they all kind of go through this in their own way. Every single viewer of this program loves ping pong. I know. Yeah, it's really good.
On this side of the program loves it too.
Yeah, yeah.
Every non-viewer,
every non-viewer. We're your viewers in our own little way. We're our own viewers. Chihaya, I gotta watch Chihaya Furu. I really want to.
Yeah, and I guess I feel like at the end of the day, like the less that's fixated, it seems the better. The less it's fixated, it seems the better. Because the less that you fixate, like the more you're flexible, the more you can adapt and still be in like your authenticity or whatever.
Yeah. You know, this is something that I had to play other games to like really understand at a deep level. Because like it's just like I have so much history with me. I think a lot of people can kind of relate to this. Like Plup.
Can I say one thing real quick? I'm sorry to cut you. I just have to.
Say it.
I think exactly what you were saying about what the difference between West Balls and Zayn is that like West Balls a little bit too fixated on, like that's I think what you're saying. Like he's not fixated on the outcome. He's fixated on styling or whatever. Yeah. And they both are, but West Balls is a little bit more. And so he wasn't able to be flexible in the way that Zayn was. I feel like that's what you were. He wasn't able to like let go of it and move into
That was a very elegant way of putting that. I agree. That's what I'm. Yeah, yeah, and yeah, it's right. It's kind of like where you put your attention. Honestly,
it kind of is.
It's kind of where you put your attention. It's kind of like if you put your attention too hard into the results, or on the other side of things, into the way you want to win, your ideal play style or whatever. If you put it too hard, you know, things don't go your way. But if you're loose and you're willing to adapt and you're flexible and you're kind of aware of what needs to change in how you're playing and what you need to be doing, then yeah, things play out very differently. I was gonna say, you were talking about how, you were talking about how in Melee you get so like I when I started playing Ultimate and Grand Blue, I find in right now, and I found this in Ultimate too, and I think it's not just me. Like I see this the most clearly with Plup. I had a really funny aside from the most recent Smash Summit where I was talking to Null, and we were just talking about like, you know, Plup as a player, because Plup had that insane grand finals or whatever, right? He kind of. And we were wondering, you know, there were some matches where he kind of got like, you know, like kind of reversaled by HBox, and HBox like clutch boxed him or whatever. And we were like, oh man, how is this going to play out with Plup's mental? But Plup's stuck in there, and he like really grinded it out to the bitter end. And he played, you know, kind of just like blitzkrieg mode Fox for 10 games, right?
Blitzkrieg
and it was
mode.
insane. He didn't win the tournament, but it was insane. I think it was some of the best Fox play I've seen out of anyone. Anyways, before that, there's some point, you know, before the top 8 or during the top 8, I was talking with Null, and Null was talking about Null, the Fox player from SoCal, and he was saying, I don't know, well, what the hell was the Well, he said, you know, you ever feel like when you watch Plup play, he like never really looks that happy to play Melee. He's like, he always looks like a little bit tilted. You know, you kind of see he's like a little tilted on his face, whatever. It's like, oh, you know, and it's like the only time, Null said, the only time Plup looks happy playing Smash is when he's playing Mega Man in Ultimate, and he's got the leaf shield around him, and he's going like, and he's shooting the little buster. That's what Plup loves playing Mega Man. He's so happy when he's playing Ultimate, and he's just running around with Mega Man. Dude, he loves Mega, and he's having a good time the whole time. And I think it's because there isn't, you know, years of expectation, and like it's just, yeah. I mean, obviously, you know, in a lot of ways, Melee is a lot more fun than Ultimate. There's a lot more freedom and all that. But there's something to be said about playing a new game where you're in a new community. You're not one of the top seeds, and people aren't expecting all these great things out of you, or you're me, or you're a commentator, you know, and people, you know, are like, oh man, this guy's been playing the game forever or whatever. And there's all this like, you go to a new game and you're playing a new game. You must have had this too, playing Street Fighter 4, right? You must have experienced this to a certain, and you're playing, you know, Burn Notice or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And you're stunning, and you're thinking to myself, oh, people didn't know I was hot shit at this. People didn't, you know?
It's definitely a different feeling.
Right? It's a different feeling, right?
It's definitely different.
You're on Excellent Adventures, and you're showing people like, oh, look, I'm what's up in this game too. And it's
Excellent Adventures.
And it's a totally different type of, isn't it a completely different feeling? What do you think it is? I think what it is it's fun to not have baggage and expectations on you. I think that's what it boils down to.
Yeah.
Dude, I can't tell you the number of Melee players, when Melee players say things like, oh, I just don't want to enter this tournament because like I want to drop out of the bracket. Why do you think they drop out of the bracket?
Why? I tell me. I actually don't really know.
I think that's it. I think it's
expectation.
I think, okay, so Levin goes
like
to
ladder
tournament.
Anxiety, right?
Literally, if you think about it in terms of physical and like practical value, Levin should not drop out of the tournament. He can play poorly, get fifth, get, I don't know, $500, whatever, however much money you get for fifth. Probably not 500, it's probably less than that, but whatever. Right? But get your flight paid for or something. Okay, it's probably less, his flight's probably more expensive. But you see what I'm saying? He should just stay in the tournament, get fifth, like collect his check for getting fifth, and then he got a couple $100. That's what he should do from a practical standpoint. But he doesn't, because his brain, and I don't blame him for this because I'm totally with him, and I've dropped out of locals for the same reason, right? Where I don't feel like entering the local anymore. I'm like, I'm just going to commentate. Because I don't want to put myself through playing subpar and losing to some guy that I have conditioned myself with my years of expectations. I shouldn't be losing to this player, and then I drive home feeling miserable because I got upset by so and so, and I don't want to put myself through that on a very mental It doesn't make any sense. I should just enter the tournament and I have a shot at winning money. I'm there anyway, right? Leffen's there anyway. You know, Mewtwo King, whoever, right? But top players drop out of tournaments all the time, and I think it's expectations, and I think it's really tough. And
expectations some shit.
It's some shit.
Expectations some shit.
It's some shit. I think that's why people enjoy playing, competing in something new. It's just like, all right, it's like the weight is all lifted. The weight is all lifted, you know? I don't know.
Yeah, expectation is definitely some shit.
What have you gotten out of? Tell me about. I wanted to go back to the meaningless conversation.
Oh, meaningless is dope, dude.
Yeah,
meaningless is dope.
Tell me more about
didn't want to. I didn't want to read it for a while because it's I wasn't sure that it's a little bit intimidating because it's like there's a bunch of links and I don't think that it's super well organized. But you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
The way that it's put together, it's different. It's not a book, so it's not straightforward. It's not a blog, you know. It's not super straightforward. And then also there's a bunch of people who have read it and I was like and they thought that it was good or valuable, and I was just worried that like I think a part of me was like I don't even want to try because what if I don't get it?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. I have that same thing.
Yeah, I like didn't want to read it for a while, but as I started to read it, so it's kind of like talking about, I think that at a certain point, it's like describing a lot of meditative insights, but in a more kind of down to earth way. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what it seems to me. And he talks about like the key premise is that everything, you know, like a cloud, like nebulous, a cloud is nebulous. The word nebulous means cloud like. Like if you're in a cloud, it's just water droplets and it's not actually, you don't even see a cloud. It's just like water droplets.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't tell where one cloud ends and another begins, but then from down here, you can see a cloud. Like it's clearly there.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're close up, like there isn't really a cloud, but when you're far away, there is, and it's like really clear.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, interesting. Like most things in the world are like not clear. Like what is a thing? Like we're kind of talking about like the basic nature of all quote things of reality is that everything is kind of nebulous. So like everything blends into everything else. Nothing's actually just like its own separate thing. But obviously there are different things.
Right.
Both are true.
Both are true.
And like we can't fucking deal with that.
This is actually, oh man.
And we can't fucking deal with
this
that.
is sick.
We can't fucking deal with that. Like we cannot deal with that.
We cannot
Both
deal
are
with
true.
it.
Both are true. Like you can't argue with anybody on a scientific level, on like any level, that things are totally separate.
Bobby,
like,
do you know about who was talking about this? We must have both seen this talk, right? You know about the double slit experiment in physics, and how like light behaves both as a particle and waves, and like there's this experiment that you can show that light behaves simultaneously as this nebulous concept, which is like all light is a wave. It's like this cloud, but at the same time, it behaves like little individual particles you can measure. And then it turns out that all of matter, everything we touch, even us as people, like all of our, like everything behaves this way to a certain degree. It's all kind of relative. It's like relative. It's like light exhibits this behavior the most readily, but like, you know, like all physical matter actually behaves this way. And then, I think it was one of the talks you must have linked me. But apparently, like, this is a thing that, like, the Zen masters and, Buddhists have kind of had a way of talking about this for, like, thousands of years. And the whole interesting thing with, like, the double slit experiment is, like, and you hear this with quantum mechanics all the time, like Schrodinger's cat. Observing the particle causes it to act like a particle. But when you don't observe it, when there isn't an observer, it behaves as a cloud, right? And the whole thing with this very old like kind of Zen concept is like observing nature influences it, and so consciousness is actually this thing that it's crazy. It's like a 1,000-year-old concept that sounds very, very hokey, but in the 1900s it was proven to have basis in like, you know, particle physics, right? Which is like, yeah, observing reality like influences and changes it and causes it to take shape.
All that stuff's weird.
Dr. K, this is Dr. K. Dr. K was talking about this. Sorry, Dr. K was talking about this. Yeah, and and it's fucking bonkers how it's well, I just think it's fucking crazy that it's like this thousands-year-old concept that sounds completely
That is
funky.
crazy.
And then, but then it's like, oh, turns out, yeah, now we have machines where we can study like particles, and it's like, nah, they were right all along.
Yeah.
On like
I think
like
at the end of the day, you know
physical
how I make sense of this in my mind is that like this is why I relate everything to Melee, by the way.
yeah,
The deeper we get as like a bunch of different people looking at a phenomenon that's kind of like that's outside of ourselves,
yeah,
the more we get to some pureness or some essence. Like the Melee bringing together all these people and that we all wanted to like explore it and get better at it or whatever, that's what produced us being able to observe Mewtwo King,
yeah,
Zane, Mango, Hbox, like all approaching the problem from different angles, and then Left and Armada, right? It's like, so like as any group of people kind of like really investigate some aspect of reality, like we all kind of end up in these kind of spots. You know what I'm saying? Like we're all ending up in these similar zones or some shit.
Yep.
So anyway, it makes sense to me that like the people who meditated, like they're just going in and like they're all like comparing notes and stuff.
Yeah.
The robotics community, they're all talking about folding clothes machines. Like they're trying to figure out, who's got this insight, who's got that. And they're going to discover its duality is like at the core of folding clothes with robotics technology.
You arrive at the same conclusion.
Yeah, that's how I kind of feel that way. So it makes sense to me. But then it's a little bit weird that in physics we're able to see it in some.
I mean, yeah, I don't know how much of that is like a little bit of an oversimplification. I'm not trying to suggest that like it's 1-to-1. I see Sheridan in the chat. Sheridan, what do you think about everything we're saying? Sheridan, what do you think? I think I'm oversimplifying it, but I think there's something there. Do you agree that I'm oversimplifying it, but there's something there? I think everything's, Bobby, this is what I think.
It's all a loop. That is for fucking sure.
I was going to say, I think it's
for fucking
loop.
Sure.
I think everything's a fucking loop, Bobby.
Because here we are again talking about the loops.
Which is a loop. The loops are a loop. Everything's a loop.
But for meaningness, right? So you've got this reality.
Yeah.
That like the world that we live in.
Yeah.
It's got these two things that don't seem compatible, but they are. Like it just is. That's just the way that it is. So we just have to accept that both are true. But that it's clear that like I have a computer and this computer is here and there's a microphone here and they're not the same thing.
Yeah.
But also that you can't really tell where one ends and the other begins.
You can't.
But they're also clearly separate things. But also you kind of can't tell.
Do you think it's kind of tragic in a sense that you only really we establish meaning and we kind of like define things? It's like you said with the clouds. You have to zoom out, right? Like if you're in the cloud, you can't tell where one cloud ends and the other begins. But when we're down here looking up at clouds, we can see them as being separate things. And do you think it's kind of sad that the closer you get to something and the closer you get into it, I think that's why, I think you see this in the news a lot.
It starts to disappear.
I think that, there's a name, I don't know if there's a name for this effect, but like the thing where it's like every news story seems hella true except the ones that you know personal details about, and then you read it and you're like, it's like every article about Super Smash Bros. Melee, I'm like, no, there's like little things here that I would word differently, and I think this is kind of overstated and this is understated. The commentator, you could definitely call it the commentator effect.
It's like when the commentators talk about your main, you're like, oh my god, these guys don't know shit. Yeah. And then if they're talking about a different character, you're like, oh, that makes sense.
Yes, yeah, it's completely true. That's why I love commentating characters that I play, so that I'm right.
Me too.
Yeah, it's great. It's super awesome.
I like to not talk about the. This is why I don't talk about it.
There you go.
Try to not talk about the characters.
Emergent complexity. Sheridan keeps having cool adjective noun. He's got little names for like every little concept we're talking about.
Do you know about emergent complexity? It's one of the sickest shit. It's like the coolest thing.
I think I can guess, but just summarize it for me.
Yeah, emergence is basically, emergence.
And in summarizing it for me, I'm sure that the complexity will emerge, but go on. Sorry, I just had
to. There's pieces of a thing and combined to create like a new thing, but it's just it's two other things interacting. So if you have a system and it's got 4 different mechanics, they can combine to create new mechanics, and then it becomes more complex because there's not just 4 options anymore.
Yeah.
Like wave dashing is a piece of it's a perfect example of emergence.
Yeah, or like mix-up situations. It's like, oh, in teching, in like tech chasing, they can tech this way, that way, or the other, or not tech. And then when they don't tech, there's like a new branch or like a new there's like a new whatever, or they can DI off stage and then they're in this gimp situation. I don't know if that's the same thing. I just felt like it was kind of.
I don't think it's the same thing, but I think it's interesting when you bring up the ledge, then I think you start to talk about it. Because, like, tech chasing or whatever and text and stuff, you can consider that just one system.
Sure.
But then when you include the platform, then now the tech chasing or whatever, it interacts with this ledge in a new way. And now there's, like, new things.
I was thinking of, like, when they miss the tech, now they can lay there for a long time. And now you introduce the notion of, like, well, now, like, you know, what if you just miss the tech and you lay there for, like, 10 seconds, they have to blink. That's not one of the 4 options. That's, like, a new element, right? I don't know.
I think probably, like, jab resetting is definitely emergence. Like, that was not planned.
But then they can
like,
smash Giant up, right? And then they don't have... So then now you have that whole war. I don't know.
Ridvan, because Ridvan in the chat is saying stuff about this. You should probably just read it, because, like, this guy's definitely thought about meaning deeper than I did, for sure. So, you know, it seems like you're off the cuff thing. Yeah. I think what this homie is gonna start saying, so it's like meaning and meaninglessness. I think that generally what he's saying is that there's 2 ways that people deal with the fact that reality is the way that it is, where nothing's quite clear, but there are different things. Like, you can be what he calls, like, an eternalist, like have an eternalist mindset, which basically fixates a thing. So, like, religion is generally like an eternalist system where you've got, like, God, and God, like, controls all this. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
there's some definiteness to all things because of, you know, you kind of fixate God or whatever, and then everything's meaningful in a certain way.
Yeah.
Or you can go the other way and be like, okay, everything's meaningless, and so you deny, like, that anything has, like, a true point, that anything's, like, concrete, and, like, everything's, like, kind of nothing.
Yep.
So there's, like, the two different ways, and I think that it's at the end of the day, it's pretty interesting, because you're just talking about something very simple, and then how this whole eternalist thing, you can see how it creates a lot of these tendencies that normal everyday people have, and this whole, like, nihilistic thing, you can see how it plays out. You're talking about how some people are, you know, you can end up being a materialist, which basically means that you think that the mundane things are all that really matters. There's nothing that's, like, an eternal purpose or anything. It's just mundane things are what matters. So you're kind of nihilistic about the big picture, and then, you know, the small picture you're more fixated on. Or you could be somebody who's, unfortunately, like, I'm pretty pegged as this kind of mission-driven person, where I've got this idea that there's this, like, eternal purpose that is all meaningful, and the mundane stuff means nothing. Like, it's totally a waste of time.
I see.
So I fixated that and denied all the other things.
And that's a form of dualism, isn't it? Maybe.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and then you create your own meaning, right? But then it's like, it's not purely subjective, but it's not purely objective, and it's like, it's kind of fucked up, and it's hard to think about. But at the end of the day, what I feel is, like, really getting me is this idea of, like, you know, you have your little box of, we talked about this did I talk about GoldenEye with you? You hear me talk about that with Atrioc?
Yeah, this was on this, I think this was on the Scar and Toph show we did while I was really high.
Yeah, it's
I had a moment, but go on. Yeah.
It's like, you know, I'm in my little GoldenEye game, right?
This is the you are the screen, right? This is
yeah. Go ahead. So all of us have our screen.
All of us have our screen.
Right, we're all, like, kind of playing in this, like, you know, your little GoldenEye. Like,
GoldenEye.
This is the Toph game. I'm playing the Scar game.
And again, by the way,
and it's just loaded.
It could be any game, but let's just say GoldenEye because we like GoldenEye. Yeah. Okay.
And what's interesting to me is this whole idea that, like, certain things are fixated. Like, what's fixated in the game? You know, James Bond is fixated in the game. He's always there. Like, your life bar is kind of fixated. Like, there's certain things that are fixated, and that's just the way that goes.
Yep.
I feel like for me, and probably for a lot of people, but for me, for sure, and we have to do this, I think that meaning itself is, like, kind of fixated. Like, what does this moment mean? What does this person, what does what they're saying mean? What does it mean about me? What does it mean about them? What does it mean about... Do you know what I'm trying to say? I'm trying to say, like, what it means. It's, like, kind of always a question that I'm trying to calculate and reevaluate. Same as how I was saying, like, with Leffen, right? Like, maybe he's trying to figure out if he's, you know, at the skill level that he needs to be, sort of thing.
You mean,
and
like,
it just feels to me like he's got a fixation on pushing his skill higher.
Okay. You're saying,
like, for me, I'm trying to figure out what it means.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah, so in this example or whatever, you're saying that like for Leffen, like the world of Goldeneye that he's fixated in, if he is James Bond, is like he fundamentally like he's taking it as a premise that he needs to prove how good he is, and that's like what his life is about, in a
Kinda.
sense, day to day.
Yeah.
It's like he
Yeah,
wakes
when
up
he
in the morning.
right, like when he loses in a tournament, it's like the red starts going dun dun
Ah!
dun dun. You know what I mean? And then when he wins a tournament, it's like James Bond makes his little pose.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like that's the game. That's what he's doing.
Yeah. There's
And like for me,
someone
when I make
photoshopped
sense
that.
of something that I've been puzzling over, it's like my James Bond's like, right? And like,
yeah.
there's certain little moments where I think people kind of like, I'll feel like somebody's telling me I got something wrong, and it's like, dun, 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 dun.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, damn, I didn't know what it meant. And I'm kind of what I'm thinking about, or what it's got me to start playing with, is this idea of like what would it mean if what it means is like no longer fixated, like if that can just kind of leave the game, right? It's like no longer the point for this moment, it's just kind of gone.
Yeah.
That's kind of interesting. It's like all of a sudden I just am kind of like here.
Do you
like,
think that mission, like random question, you don't have to answer if you don't want to? Well, I guess you kind of have to now.
Oh, I'll answer.
That frame for you, the frame of like, you're trying to establish meaning or whatever. Do you feel like you're more in that frame or less in that frame? Actually, let me switch the word on that. Do you feel like you're less in that frame or more in that frame when you're high?
Which one exactly? That I'm trying to figure out what it means?
You're trying to establish meaning, yeah.
That's a really interesting question.
You see what I'm saying?
I think
it's not obvious, right? It's not obvious.
Actually, okay, no, this is interesting. I think that probably, and this is changing, right? But I could talk about a month or two ago with a lot of clarity, because like a month or two ago, I wasn't Dark Scar yet. I was just normal Scar. A month or two ago, I think when I was sober, my like, you can call it eternal. I think it's a good way to put it. It's like a good way to, and I don't think I made this distinction in my head either. You know that's never how you do it, right?
No, yeah.
Like I wasn't consciously aware of this, but
yeah,
this idea of bringing people together in community or whatever, that was what anchored the meaning question.
Yeah.
Like it was just taken for granted that like that was a thing. That's what will give meaning to everything. So how do I relate what's going on to that? And if there's no relation, then I don't really need to care.
Right.
But then if I would get high, like that part, I think would be less important. Like I couldn't hold all that at the same time, it felt, I guess. Yeah. So, I could just kind of chill and still have fun, and I wouldn't have to worry about like, what does this have to do with bringing the world together in community? Sometimes I would have like something that felt like an insight or a different way of looking at things, and I would be like, oh, that's related to this community thing. That's kind of cool. I should write this down.
Yeah. 100%.
But like, it wasn't the goal. It wasn't what I was trying to accomplish necessarily. It wasn't my purpose. I was just kind of chilling.
Yeah. Hey, I really like everything. You mentioned that guy Riven in chat. I actually really like everything he's saying in the chat.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why you should never be high around judgmental, critical people. Yeah.
Yeah, it's rough.
It's rough.
It's definitely rough.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I like everything he's saying. I really
definitely
like that safe mode analogy. That's cool. But go on. Sorry.
I think that I'm happy that it's like loosening up. I'm like just starting to, meditative people or whatever, they talk about flexibility as being important. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
it's true. It's like the ability to adapt without being inauthentic. Like that, I think that's kind of, or without like.
Visa's got that whole Twitter thread about how like if you ever want to just like it's just like put yourself in a different frame. Oh,
it's so hard though.
It's hard, but I actually
hard, dude.
I like the way he words it because I think it's really hard. It's really hard to escape your own frame. Say like you have rigid things that are like premises, like when you wake up, these are your missions, right? And it's really hard to escape that. It's hard to say, okay, I don't care about that stuff anymore. It is a lot easier, I think.
It is.
To try to put yourself in a different frame. To like, it's like, let's just say if I was.
Yes.
It's a lot easier to say, this is what I care about today.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like the whole thing where they say if you want to drop a habit, don't drop the habit, get a new habit.
Yes, you have to replace it.
Yeah,
I actually feel really bad. I should have explained in the chat the Goldeneye thing. I realized that I just talked to you like Like that was all that mattered.
Okay,
Like
well,
if you
tell
got
them.
it.
Yeah. I got it, but tell them. Yeah.
So if y'all have played GoldenEye, right? If you load up GoldenEye,
They're
then
gonna call
on
us
your
boomers.
screen, your CRT, there's going to be like, the game. And then when you're playing the game, when you're in a level, there's James Bond, and James Bond's like kind of walking around, right?
Yeah.
And when you play the game, you think of yourself as like James Bond. Like when you're playing GoldenEye, well, that's actually, if you just recognize that there's two different things. There's a James Bond and then there's the game, but actually it's all one game and there is no real James Bond. He's just like, you know what I mean? He's not like, there's not a separate thing to GoldenEye that is James Bond and GoldenEye. It's the same. Do you get that?
Same. I get that.
If you chat person get that, then think about your life and then like look at what you're looking at in your visual field or whatever. And just think about like, do you ever feel like you're James Bond walking around? Like in GoldenEye? Like you're just the James Bond kind of like, you know what I mean, moving around. And then the rest of the thing is just like something else.
But that's not it. You're an element
that's
of
not
it.
true. You can realize that like, no, there's just one GoldenEye. Like this is all the whole thing's you. Like it's just one GoldenEye. You have your idea that you're a little James Bond like walking around in the world, but like in your head, like you got to realize that INFJ, yeah, that's right. There's two people who I just said it in Discord, so you might be coming in being like a. So anyway, that's the GoldenEye thing. The GoldenEye thing is that sometimes we think that we're the little James Bond kind of walking around, but like we're not exactly.
We're not exactly. Right. It's there's the world and there's you as an element in the world and that's what you are.
There's definitely an external world, right?
Oh yeah.
But I feel like there's something about it that feels kind of almost like an MMO. You know what I'm saying? Where like there's the server, but like none of us are in the server.
Yeah. ENFJ sounds right. Yeah. What's the N? Hey, what's the N in the thing?
I think it's intuitive.
What's the other one? Like what's the S?
F? Oh, intuitive or I think it's sensing.
I forget the difference between those.
Yeah, it's not solipsism. Yeah. We're not alone. You know what solipsism is? Solipsism is like I'm the whole universe and everything else like revolves around.
No. It's actually the opposite. It's not the universe is me. It's I am the well.
I know some S's.
I'm definitely E. I'm definitely F. I don't know, man. I forget the P and the J. The P and the J mix me up all the time. I think that's the one I'm the closest on. I
could see you more as a P. Like a J is trying to narrow things down and close doors. That's the way that I think about it. Like a prospector, a P, like to have lots of options, you know?
P likes to have lots of options.
J does not like to have a lot of options.
Yeah, I'm pretty... So I took the test or whatever recently. I'm like... I think that's the one where I'm really close to 50-50. And I totally... Because like there's certain things in my life...
I can see you being 50. That's actually...
Pretty 50-50. Yeah, sometimes I like doors open. Sometimes I like them closed. Kind of depends on the door. I don't know.
At the end of the day, this annoys me about personality tests because sometimes... I took the disc, and I actually meted the disc.
Wait, what's the disc?
It's another assessment. It's like, I feel like I meted it and like actually thought around it and like knew what it was asking and actually answered in a way that I wouldn't ask if I were to ask the question. You know what I mean? I like thought all the way around it.
Yeah.
Because like, damn, it's so annoying, dude. It's like if you're super logical, like the question I think was, do you use more logic or more feeling to like answer questions?
Yeah.
Someone who does not respect logic at all might just be like, I use feeling. Someone who has a respect for logic but is not super introspective will say that they're really logical.
Yeah.
As you get more logical, you realize that your own bias is what makes you think that you're logical, and you realize that you are making most of your decisions, whether you want to or not, based on feeling, because we all do. Fucking believe it, chat. All of you think that you're like logical and that you make decisions based on logic, you're actually literally wrong. We all make decisions based on feeling. It's just how you can see all of your feelings that are in the way of your thinking. Yeah. And so then once you get to be super logical, you go back to saying, I think like my decisions are based on feeling. But if I say that in the disc test, they're going to think that I'm the person that doesn't respect logic in the first place, which is wrong.
Right. Yeah, right.
So I had to say for the test that I use logic.
Oh, that's fucking lame. Yeah. No,
But I had
I'm
to
with
do
you.
that.
I'm with
Otherwise,
you.
it would have like on the axiom that I really care about. You know what I mean? It would have been like, oh yeah, this guy's totally a feeler. Like he's not really thinking. This guy does
Dude.
not really care about logic because I mean he just admitted it right there. He doesn't
Yeah,
even
yeah,
try.
yeah, yeah,
It's like
yeah.
no, I worked so hard that I actually got from A to B back to A.
Yes. Yeah, oh god, this happens all the time. It happens in a lot of
So
different.
with the P and J thing, I think that I go from P because I open all the doors and I
Yes.
see what's behind them.
Yep.
And sometimes I'm like, that door's a fucking stinker. Like I gotta close that door. I
Close
never
that
want to hear
door.
about it again.
Close that
I
door.
never want to hear about it again. But I try not to close doors that I haven't yet opened.
Right.
So am I a P or a J? I don't know, but I
Depends
think
how
I'm a
you
J
define
because I
it.
really
Yeah.
like closed doors much more than. I don't think so. Someone in chat asks, "Is logic a meaningless construct or a misinterpreted construct?" No, I don't. Not at all. Like logic is definitely a real thing. Uh, I feel that my decisions tend, like basically all the options that come up, like everything that I think of, it's all feeling based, and then I put it down on paper and I try to systematically work through it, which is a logical exercise. It's an exercise in logic. I try to make my decisions because basically here's the way you work around it. You put down your feelings, you use the logic to make sense of your feelings. Then when you look at the conclusion, right? Your respective logic and the process helps you feel that it's
Yes.
correct.
Yeah.
And then
agreed.
your feeling that it's correct is what motivates your behavior. So the logic produced the answer, but the decision comes from the feeling. Does that make sense?
That was good. That was very elegantly stated.
That's how it goes.
That's how it goes.
That's what I really think I'm doing as I do this process. I'm like, all right, well, I'm a biased motherfucker, so let me get all my thoughts out
I
and
had
like let me just cross some of them through because these are wrong.
Speaking of meaning and reality and things like that, I had a similar moment. I was a good friend of ours, I guess, QC, made like a Twitter question where he was like, rank these in order of which ones are the most real to you, from the most real to the least real. And it was love, morality, gender, money, and intelligence. Those 5 things. And then I realized as I was sitting here,
What was the question? What's more in
rank these from the things that feel the most real to the least real. And then
Real.
that got me real, like the most real concepts.
Okay,
right?
I'm writing down.
Write them down. I have my answer. Right, so a good friend of ours, Mai, in the chat says, oh, I know about gender. So this got me thinking, what does real even
Gender,
mean?
money, morality.
Gender, money, morality, love, and intelligence. Rank those. Now, I got to thinking, okay, well, what do I, and QC did not elaborate intentionally. He just said, whatever feels the most real to you, and I don't want to qualify what that means. Take money, for example. So we might, or gender. We have, mind the chat. And it's kind of like, if you're saying gender is the least real, does that mean like you've spent the most time thinking about it and you understand it really fleshed out and you understand that it means different things to different people? So you're saying it's the least real? Or because you put a lot of time into fleshing it out and solidifying it as a concept and understanding that different people have different interpretations, does that make the most real? Something like morality. For myself, the way I think about morality is I totally understand that different people have different morality systems, and I don't think it's super concrete. I don't think there's like a complete black and white in a lot of realms, right? But it's something that I've thought a lot about, and I have my own morality system that I think is pretty well defined for myself. So to me, it feels very real. So I put it relatively high, but at the same time, I totally get that for a lot of people out there, there's different ways to define it, and individual instances of morality are not well defined. But then it's a loop because I've spent so much time, because I've qualified it to that degree, I ended up putting morality reason. I think I put it like 3rd or something. But I mean I think that it's real, but me saying it's like you said with the loop, right? It's like the lowest level is like morality is real, morality is hella real, like there is a right and wrong, and then you go a little higher than that, and you're like morality is not very real at all. Different people have different definitions of right and wrong, but then you go a level higher than that, and you're like morality is, like it's this it's the system that's kind of living and breathing, and different people like have different definitions that intersect, and
Yeah.
like because I'm able to tackle it from different dimensions and different angles, it feels real to me, and I've fleshed out my own morality system. Anyway, I came up with my order.
I didn't. I'm not done. I'm not done with mine. This is hard.
It's hard. It's hard. And yeah, I mean it's hard because it's like your thing with the fucking.
You know what's tough about
with
it
the
is
disc
because the things themselves you sort of have to define. You also have to define real, and I think that probably our answers will depend more on our concepts of probably real is the most what you think real is.
What you think real is, yeah. Even
It
real, you
is
have to
like
define even
probably
real.
you know because that affects every single number, but then also what am I saying gender is and what is the realness of the thing that I'm defining as gender or whatever.
Yeah, right. Money, I thought was an interesting one too, where it's like,
I
especially with
think
like
that I have
business,
I actually have intelligence as number one,
that's close
and
to what I had.
all the rest I feel not great about. I have love as number two right now,
Okay.
and morality, money, gender all feel quite fake.
Depending
But
on your fucking definitions, man, it's like your list.
yeah, as I'm kind of changing my definition of real,
Right.
gender becomes actually a little bit more real because well, no. It depends. Yeah, it depends on how I define things.
Yeah, it depends how you
Gender is
define real.
mapped to, it's like it's a social construct that maps to a thing that like is kind of, it's descriptive of a thing that like exists
Yeah.
and that was that's produced, you know, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. You could just spit
But
out. I mean,
the gender in itself is not necessarily real, but it's describing a thing
right.
that I think is like kind of real. It's like how life
Maps
propagates
is a good
itself
word.
or whatever, which is
Yeah, I like the way you
but
said it. Like maps to something. Like I think that's like a good. And I
money's
want
super not real.
money. I had money the lowest, dude. I had money the lowest. It's hella
But
real.
then again,
in a
it's
lot of
real,
ways,
but it's not.
yeah. You could print more of it. Money is used insofar as it maps to products and services, but then even that's kind of not true, right?
Yeah, it depends on how you define real.
Like that's the thing is even that's kind of not true because fucking people are gaming that shit all the fucking time. And it turns out if you want to get better at doing money, you got to distance it from the things it maps to. That's why I put it the lowest. Like the people that are hella sick at making money are the furthest away from money maps to products and services. They've got all their, you know what I'm saying? Like that's why fucking corporations. Anyway, I don't want to get into that whole.
Yeah, you could probably pick 5 random concepts and like this is a super tough question. I feel
It's-
like
yeah.
I don't even have an understanding of why this question's hard yet. I don't have a full understanding.
You don't
I have
even.
an understanding of like a couple. I think we've all talked. I've even seen in chat like we're all saying that like yeah, how you define things is pretty bonkers and how you define real. But there's also other little things I think that's going on that makes it even harder.
Yeah. I decided to spend less than 1 minute on it because I didn't want to. But I mean, it's very fun to think about. My list was from most real to least real. I did love, intelligence, morality, gender, and money. But you know, it's not super.
I can totally, yeah, that's close to where I was. I can totally see it. Although I think that morality is like, but then again, right? I was like, what are we even talking about? Notice, by the way, that this whole thing about definition, what does it mean to define something? It means to like be clear about what it means, right?
And there you go, right?
So
And
it's like all back, it's like back to meaning, like how we make meaning is
yeah.
like this question is hard to answer because we don't know what the individual things mean. And then also like, what does it mean to complete the exercise? Like, what does it mean that people got similar answers? Like, I don't know. Meaning's nuts.
Yeah, meaning is nuts. Meaning is nuts. I might have to pick into this.
You definitely
assigning
should.
myself. No,
you
I
definitely
am.
should.
I'm assigning myself homework. I've got 2 as we approach the allotted ending time slot that I assigned to us on Google Calendar. I have 2 pieces of homework for myself. One is I want to read more about this, so I will in the time that we set up the next show that I'm sure we'll do in a couple weeks or however long. And 2, I got to talk to Zane. I want to talk to Zane about some emergent complexity. I want to see what Zane thinks
Since
about
we don't
emergent
have to
complexity.
organize it all, like we could do this every 2 weeks probably.
Yeah, every 2 weeks or whatever. Yeah, let's just do it from the thing. Maybe
Should we say something while we're here about the reads?
Sure. Yeah. Hey, we can I was gonna say maybe homework for Ben is maybe Ben can drive you an Ethernet cable between now and
Yeah, good idea.
or adapter.
idea.
Yeah. But say something about the reads. You say it. Well, we can't do the reads because we can't meet in person, and it fucking. It's like the whole point.
Sorry.
There's an element of irony in there, isn't it? The reads is us playing online using the
NetPlay
internet.
show.
It's the NetPlay show, and we're in the era of NetPlay, but we can't do the reads. Isn't that beautifully ironic? We can't
Beautifully ironic.
I mean, we could. Like, I could go on NetPlay and you could go on, but then it's just. It's like us. We could, but I mean, I just feel like if we're convening on Google Hangouts, I almost said, Google, if we're convening on Google Hangouts, I just, I'd rather talk to you about stuff. But if
Do you know what
there's
else
enough
is
demand-
nuts?
Huh?
Do you know what else is nuts?
What else is nuts, Bobby?
I like thinking about like what is a game then? What is a game?
What is
I feel like a game is like when people agree to like the meanings or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to agree to like a game is like when things are like defined.
Dude,
like
did you ever Bobby?
You just kind of decide.
Did you ever read Calvin Hobbes?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let me know if this tore you up the way it tore me up. As a kid, I really wanted to know how to play Calvin Ball. I really wanted. I was like, "What do you mean? There's no fucking rules? They're running around. There's some little hoops in the ground and shit."
Yeah, there's clearly rules.
They're doing something, but I was like,
rules are not fixated. That is a game without fixed rules, and that messes with us because it doesn't really seem like a game.
It doesn't really seem like a game. Did you watch Nichijou yet?
No.
Oh, you got to watch Nichijou. It's the most zen anime. And
okay.
I gave it a 10 on Mal.
I got to watch it, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I gave it a 10. It's really...
Dark Scar, by the way, is just that I'm not... I uninstalled Twitter on my phone, and I'm just, like, not available at all, and I'm not reading anything, and I don't know what's going on. Well, so it's pretty much just me. I'm
bringing you back to the light slowly but surely.
Pretty much no change, but yeah.
Yeah. Hey, why did you say solipsism? I actually don't know the definition.
Solipsism. I'm not sure that I know the exact definition either, but it's like the idea that you are the world. Like, there's nothing else but you.
I don't think.
Why do I think it's BS? Because, hey man, damn dude, what the? Like, from the GoldenEye analogy thing, like, yeah, that's the degree to which I think that it makes some amount of sense, but like that's a very limited view of all reality. Like it's, you know what I'm saying? Like it's very clear that Toph has his own GoldenEye to me.
Right. Or
like how can I think that I'm the only thing? Like I'm not the only thing that exists.
Right. The rest of the universe, like in Bobby's, in solipsism, like solipsism is like, I don't have my... Like, the thing, Bob... I don't even think you were trying to make the point that solipsism is BS. I think you were trying to say that... Solipsism implies that it's like, you're here and I'm here, right? And then this is the universe. And solipsism implies that the center of the universe is here, you, or me, or me, or whatever. And then the rest of everything revolves around me, right? The thing you were trying to say is that there's the universe. And this is the fucking thing that matters. And we're just... things moving around it. And so
this has to do with like what's real and what isn't. I think when I hear solipsism, it's what it suggests is that we should take seriously the possibility that there's no more to the things we perceive than our perceptions. I don't think that's a reasonable position to hold.
Have you ever read... I'm having deja vu.
Hope you are much more than my perception of you. That's what I think.
Yeah, and likewise to you, Bob.
And it is solipsistic, I think that my perception of you is what you are.
Have you read the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
No.
Okay. It's a fun, funny, sci-fi kind of series, right? And there's I've talked about this on the reads. I know I've talked. So maybe you've heard this before, but I'll just say it for the people in the chat. There's this like really self-centered character who's like one of the main characters or whatever, right? And he's like kind of like a funny, comedic character, but this doesn't happen in the first book. This happens somewhere in the series. Someone tell me when this happens. But basically there's this plot point where there's this machine that you go into, and it shows you, it crushes you mentally, and it makes you into a shell of a man, because the machine illustrates to you how important you are relative to the universe. And everyone goes in, and they come out, and they're just like soul drained, because they see how insignificant they are, right, and how little they matter. And the way they save this guy is they somehow, again, I haven't read this book for like 15 years, but they construct a parallel universe, and they put them into this without him knowing. They put him into this parallel universe that is exactly the same as our universe, except actually it's exactly the same, but they made the universe for him. And because they made this parallel universe that is exactly the same as the universe, but they made it for him, he is the most important thing in the universe. Because they made the universe for him. So that he goes into the machine in this universe, and the machine tells him, well, you're really important. It turns out that you're actually like the reason this universe exists. And he comes out and he's like, oh, cool. And then he goes back to the normal universe and he's totally fine. And I thought that was so funny. Like they basically make solipsism true for him in that moment because they built this universe for him and they didn't do anything else. I thought that was so sick reading this. I was like, that is the sickest fucking concept. The way they set it up, and as they're doing it, they don't explain what. Anyway, yeah, but anyway, that's like they make solipsism true for a second. I just thought that was
maybe I gotta read that
aside. Yeah, it's fun. It's really fun. It's either Restaurant at the End of the Universe or Song of Thanks. Yeah, it's a really fun.
Am I all done working?
Series.
I'm almost all done. I'll be all done in like 5 minutes. He's gonna set a timer.
Let's set a timer. No, hell yeah. I mean, I'm down to set the timer right. The 5 minute
timer. Real.
Yeah. Well, I have homework.
5-minute timer on that list.
Yeah. I have homework and Ben SW's homework. But,
yeah.
We'll do this again.
Well, I had a really good time.
I had a really good time too, man. I'm gonna read about meaningness, and I'm gonna read a little bit about emergent complexity.
I think emergent complexity is cool. You could read that real quick.
Oh, that doesn't take that long.
You could read that, yeah, just Wikipedia article.
Really?
So wave dashing is emergent complexity. Like the developers programmed in rules, physics, like any physics engine where you can do stuff that was not intended. That is an example of emergence. Any sandbox game, like you know that game where there's like a bunch of spells and they combine in weird ways. No. Well, I guess that's all planned, but
sure. Anyway. Or like speedrunning. Speedrunning is emergent complexity.
Yeah, they take advantage of emergent complexity.
Okay.
Not every little thing is. Magica, that's the game I was talking about.
Magica, okay. Any other closing thoughts?
Probably not.
Everything's
I'm
a
just
loop.
thinking about how like fixation's really an interesting topic. Like wanting to control is an interesting topic. We can control practically nothing.
I actually think if there's one thing I learned that I really want to, I should honestly, I need to write like it's the control thing. I think I need to really
dude, let that just sit and think about that shit, dude. Because it's like we can't let go of it. I've been thinking about, can I let go of control? Can I just be cool with not being able to control like pretty much anything?
That's a big you should watch.
Really, right? Think about how much of like discourse is about people trying to control like each other or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's like so much policing, like gatekeeping and policing, those are all forms of trying to control the external world.
Definitely, it's no way to live. I love the way Splendid put that. That's no way to live. That's no way to live. Nichijou, there's a character that I think relinquishes control, and it's really beautiful. I really like that anime. I rewatched it recently.
How do we get power? What is power? Dude, a true warrior doesn't need a sword.
Ooh. Over our own lives. Yeah.
True warrior needs no sword.
All right.
That's what he says.
Tell Sophie and Donato I said what's up. Yeah.
I will.
Yeah.
All right. Chat. Good talk. Thank you so much for watching the Scar and Toph show, the dark Scar and Toph show.
Jarrett, if you're still here, again, thank you for the fat donation. I super duper appreciate it.
Thank you.
And also thank you for your work making the song and combo video. Super duper cool stuff. If you're still here, but miss you guys. Miss you, Sheridan.
We'll be back at some point.
Yeah, probably sooner than later. It's not gonna be as long of a break probably as last time, but thanks, guys.
Yeah.
All right. Peace.
Peace.